So our first guest today made a mark for himself by leading the New Bedford Area Chamber of Commerce for many years, and after that, starting a successful mentoring program, Smiles, here on the South Coast. And now he's bringing those leadership skills to a nonprofit organization located in New Bedford South End. Jim Mathis is the president and CEO of Dennison Memorial Community Center. Welcome, Jim.
Thanks, Jim. Appreciate it.
All right. Dennison, for those who don't know, one of the oldest community organizations in New Bedford, dating back to the 1860s. What led you to that place, Jim?
Actually, I got a call from someone who worked for a large philanthropic foundation who had been and still is deeply involved with Dennison. And said Dennison was facing some issues and thought that my skill set, which includes an interest in kids in New Bedford, in particular education, the education of those kids, thought that it might be a place where if I went there that I'd be able to help out. And Dennison, like many organizations in the city and in the area, was struggling. And my role was really pretty straightforward: go in and see what I could do to help Sean Hargraves and Joe Neves and the others who've been there for decades, literally decades, to stabilize the place and keep the doors open and try to get more kids to come in and be able to do things to help them.
How have you done that?
We have. We've done a really good job, I think. In particular, very proud of the numbers of kids who come in the building. When I got there, we had about 225 children who live in the South End who were members of Dennison. On any given day, maybe there were 75 to 100 kids in the building, which was terrific. A lot of energy, and it was great that they were there. We now have, I believe, around 465 kids who belong to the organization. It's normal to see well over 100 kids in the building pretty much every day. We've worked hard on the finances. I don't want to make it sound like that's been easy, because it has not been. But we've worked hard to stabilize the organization. We still have work to do there, as well as work to try to be able to offer more to those kids when they come in.
Well, every nonprofit in this area, I would say, has been looking at ways to survive, looking at ways to keep the train running. Sometimes it's a merger, sometimes it's bringing in new leadership. There's a lot of things that can make it work.
You could do a whole show on that and how, because it really is hard work. New Bedford and the South Coast is not a wealthy area, especially when you compare yourselves to places not that far away like Boston and even Providence. And so the challenge is in this very crowded community when it comes to nonprofits. How do you stand out? How do you earn the philanthropic dollars and then do the best you can with them, for whoever it is you're working for?
What's the mission of Dennison? For those who don't know.
The mission, we have a formal mission statement, but essentially what it boils down to is to be a community center for children. Ages 6 to 16. We have some older kids that if they've joined Dennison before they turn 16, they can stay with us until they finish high school. It's for kids to have a place to go after school or in the summer, where there's a mixture of structured activities or where they can self-select and just do things that they enjoy, where we offer things that interest kids like art and athletics, maybe just being in a playground or playing a game of pool or some ping pong, and then also academic support services where we do everything we can to make sure that the kids are doing well in school. That really, for me, is the most important part of the mission, is helping these kids succeed at their education, because when they leave Dennison, when they're older and then they move on in life, how well they do in life is going to be dependent upon how well they do in school.
How do families get involved? If somebody's listening now and saying, gee, I've heard of Dennison, but I wonder if my kid can go, how do you get involved?
Well, the easiest thing to do is just to give a call down to the center or just stop by. We're located at 755 South First Street. We're right across South First Street from the old Orpheum Theater in the South End. People can stop by. They can go to our website, and that'll give them information on how to contact us. But if for families out there, either you or if you know someone who has kids who are between the ages of 6 and 16. And if you live in the south end of New Bedford, and for our practical purposes, if you live south of Union Street, we want you to come to Dennison. Right now, and hopefully going forward, but definitely right now, the cost of for a kid to come to Dennison is free. There is no cost. Over the course of the summer, beginning Monday, every child who comes to Dennison will get a nutritious lunch. They'll also get a snack toward the end of the day. We're going to have a number of academic and athletic programs going on that the kids can take advantage of. So it's just a matter of mom or dad or the grandparents or the caretakers for these kids to bring them in. We want them in our building.
We've touched on this aspect. While some might look at Dennison and say it provides a home away from home for some kids, there's also a need to be a fundraiser in your job.
Yep.
And how much time do you spend doing that?
Me personally?
You personally.
Most of my time is focused there. I love being involved with the kids. I've developed really good mentoring relationships with a relatively small number who I try to spend time with every day, every week. But when you're working a place with a guy like Sean Hargraves there and Joe Neves also, who runs the after-school program, I look up to them when it comes to actually doing the hands-on work with the kids. My job is to do what I can to keep the doors open. So I am constantly working with others on staff, working with our very talented board of directors, trying to come up with good ideas for fundraisers and then pursuing grants.
All right. And by your remarks, I think you've suggested that there's been a little more emphasis made on the education aspect after school, those kinds of things. What have you tweaked since taking over as president?
Well, the stuff that really interests me the most is finding ways to interest the kids into wanting to learn. And at the root of learning, not just in the south end of New Bedford, but anywhere, is your ability to read and comprehend. So literacy skills are the most important thing. At Dennison, for me and for the kids who come in, we've done a number of things there. Every summer, and we're doing it again this summer, we'll have a minimum of 3 different reading programs that will be taking place that we sponsor ourselves with our own staff, full-time staff, as well as our part-time and summer staff. And the New Bedford School Department this summer is going to be placing teachers in our building to work with the kids as well. And the focus that we want there is for the kids to be reading through the summer so they don't have what's called the summer slide, where they leave school in June. When they go back in September, if they haven't done any reading, their reading skills, when they test them, they've actually lost a little bit of what they had when the previous school year ended. Not only do we want to prevent that so that their skills don't decrease, what we would prefer is when they start up in September that they actually are better readers than they were at the end of school. But again, it gets back to our kids self-select. We don't make them, when they come through the door, they choose what they want to do. So what that means is that the programs we run, the literacy programs, have to be interesting. One young lady we have, Molly O'Leary, recently graduated from Providence College. Last summer, she's going to do it again this summer. She ran a program for about, I think, close to 25 of our kids, read the Harry Potter book. And she brought Harry Potter to life in that program. And I knew it was working when I saw kids look at the clock and realize that that program was starting in one of the rooms upstairs, and they were late, and so they took off running. They wanted to be in it. So you have to present it in a way that's really interesting. We've done some others that aren't as dramatic as that and being able to capture the attention of the kids. And so we just say, hey, every kid who participates in this, on Friday there's going to be an ice cream party. And then the ice cream becomes a bit of a motivator, but we want the kids to be reading. And so we do what it takes to get them to read.
You're listening to Townsquare Sunday on 1420 WBSM. My guest is Jim Mathis of Dennison Memorial Community Center. In a very general sense, most of your kids come from the South End.
Yep. Yeah, most of them walk there, so they come from relatively close to the building.
Mm-hmm. And they, as you say, there's not a lot of wealth in New Bedford. Not a lot of wealth in the South End.
It's a tough neighborhood. Yeah. And a lot of the kids, I know that there are a lot of challenges in their families and with them. We're very mindful of that. Uh, we hope and we think that we're an option for their parents to consider, where they'll come in, they'll bring their kids to Dennison, they'll come in and they're going to be involved in as solid and as safe as a program that you could find anywhere in this region, not just in the south end of New Bedford.
Is Dennison a safe haven for kids?
Absolutely. We have one of the policies we have enacted since I've been there is once you're in, you're in. You don't leave. You can't even go out on a sidewalk and then try to re-enter the building. We want kids to be there. We want them to stay in the building. It's a huge building. We have a community center on one side. We have a full gymnasium on the other side. We have a great playground in the rear of the property. We want the kids in there, but what we don't want is for a kid maybe to be dropped off by mom or dad and come in and they drive off and then he goes out the door and does what he thinks he wants to do and then only comes back when it's time for him to be picked up. We just don't allow it. We want them to come in and stay there, and when they leave, they're done for the day.
What are you doing at Dennison in the wake of some recent violence around the city, including the South End? It's not limited to the South End. I want to make that
No,
clear.
that's true. That's true. We've done some very specific things. We held a community meeting for the neighborhood. The police chief was there. We had some city councilors who were there. Brian Gomes was in attendance. A representative for Tony Cabral was there. The mayor was there. The police chief was there. And it really was, we wanted to make the point that with respect to children, this is the place that parents can have their kids go and spend the day and they're going to be fine. We had 3 kids from Dennison who were there that day. 2 were in middle school. One was later, I think, in the 5th grade. And so when they spoke up during this community meeting, and they said that if I didn't have Dennison, I would just have to stay in my house. I wouldn't be allowed to go outside. I understand that, and that's what makes places like Dennison and the community center at Ben Rose and the YWCA and the YMCA and community boating and the Youth Opportunities Unlimited. All of these programs that are available for kids become so important because it gives parents options for kids to do things that are good, that are constructive, they're educational, but fundamentally are safe.
So your after-school sessions and summer sessions have expanded. I mean, you've done more with that, and it's more than just basketball, and the educational part of it, I think, is important. You mentioned there's going to be some teachers.
Yeah, New Bedford Public Schools strategy this year is to have the teachers go to where the kids are in the summertime. So it's not just Dennison. There are other organizations throughout the city where teachers will be stationed to work with kids, which I think is a pretty cool way to go about doing it, because a lot of kids don't necessarily like to go to school. But they do like to come into places like Dennison, and if we have some teachers there who can work with them, we will incent the kids to do that.
Okay. All right.
We have other things, too, I want to mention. Though. We do field trips. We'll probably do as many as 25 to 30 field trips over the course of the summer, where we take kids to the swimming pool in Fall River. We'll take a group of kids on a bus, maybe as many as 60 kids, to College Pond out in Miles Standish State Forest for a day. We'll take trips to the zoo and other places of interest for the children. Not every child can go on every field trip just because of the numbers, but every kid can go on a field trip at least once a week.
Wow, that's pretty good. So, and what other sorts of things? You mentioned, I think you mentioned the arts. What sort of work are you doing in that area?
Yeah, we have arts and crafts in the summertime right now. The New Bedford Art Museum and their Artmobile, they're just fantastic. There's no other word I can say. The stuff that they do in their own building, but when they take the Artmobile out, and so they spend some time at Dennison, that's become very popular with the kids. We have staff who's willing to work with the kids even when the Artmobile's not there to do different kinds of things. When school is in session, not during the summer, we have a retired teacher who runs our arts and crafts room. And one of the things that's become very popular is the kids sew and they make clothes. A lot of these kids make their own clothes. A surprisingly large number make their own costumes for Halloween. Obviously I'm not up there making clothes, but it's pretty impressive to see these kids develop those kinds of skills And the great thing about that is the woman who runs the program. So you want to come in and you want to do these things, and she'll work with you and help you. Your homework has to be done. So that's the first thing that happens when the kids walk in that room, and then they'll go to work on whatever the projects are. And like I said, mainly she's out finding ways to get fabric in there that the kids can work with so they can make things.
We know you're not doing this all alone. You've got an experienced staff there as well.
Yep.
Who have been working with kids in the South End for many years.
Yeah, Sean Hargraves is an icon in the South End of New Bedford. Literally thousands of children who he has cared for, and he treats them like they're his own kids. Joe Nev's been there for 30 years, runs the after-school program, certified daycare facility. He, again, is somebody who relates so well to the kids. We have Joe Gill, who's there, a retired school teacher and coach at New Bedford High School. He also now coaches the soccer team for Bristol Community College. He's been there for about 25 years. So, I'm the new guy. I mean, I've been there for 3 years, and I look at these guys, and I know how entrenched they are in that part of the city and how much good work they've done for a long time.
And they've done, a pretty good job for many, many years. And I guess I sense by your remarks here that you're pretty happy with doing this job.
Yeah, I pinch myself every day when I go to work because I get to work with terrific kids and with just a wonderful team. There may be people who care about kids as much as the folks who are on our staff at Dennison, but there's nobody who cares more than they do. And in particular, Sean Hargraves, that center with a community center on one side and a gymnasium on the other side, valued in excess of $1 million. He was able to build that, and there's not a penny of debt on that property. That's an amazing statement about his capabilities to be able to do that.
Well, tell us one more time, Jim, how can people get involved with Dennison Memorial?
To come down to the center, they can come down and see me or Sean or any of the others on staff at 755 South First Street. They can call the center at 996-2691. You can go to our website. If you just Google Dennison Memorial Community Center, that'll take you to the website. If you can call and ask for me. If you have questions about it, I'd be more than happy to speak with you. And then those who may be listening, who are in a position to provide support, I would be remiss if I didn't say, I think we earn the support that we receive every single day when we go there to work for those kids. We would appreciate any support people can give us.
My guest has been Jim Mathis, President, CEO of Dennison Memorial Community Center in New Bedford South End. Best of luck in this latest adventure, Jim.
Well, thank you.